Questions orales. The honourable member for Halifax.
Nous avons entendu un message clair des survivants et de la Commission de vérité et de réconciliation. Il faut plus que des mots, il faut aussi des actions tangibles. Mais le Premier ministre refuse encore une fois d'agir sur des recommandations clés, comme mettre en œuvre les principes de la Déclaration des Nations Unies sur les droits des peuples autochtones. Pourquoi refuse-t-il de saisir cette occasion pour avancer vers la réconciliation?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, we thank the TRC for their work, and we thank the former residential school students for the courage and strength they showed in sharing their stories with Canadians. Canada is one of the only countries in the world where Aboriginal and treaty rights are entrenched in our Constitution. We have endorsed the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples as an aspirational document and a significant step forward in improving our relationship with Aboriginal peoples, and we will continue to take concrete measures to improve the living conditions of Aboriginal peoples.
The honourable member for Halifax.
It's too bad this government lacks the courage and strength to act.
They
said no to an inquiry on missing and murdered Indigenous women. They passed legislation affecting Aboriginal rights without any consultation. They voted against implementing the UN Declaration. They underfunded First Nations education and social services, and they spent hundreds of millions of dollars fighting Aboriginal and treaty rights. As Justice Murray Sinclair has said, words are not enough. So will the Prime Minister commit to real change and real reconciliation?
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And of course, it was our government that signed the Residential Schools Agreement, made the apology on behalf of all Canadians, and created the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada. It was this Prime Minister who made the historic apology to former students of Indian residential schools, their families and their communities. And our government has implemented many initiatives to improve the lives of First Nations living in this country, and our government will keep working with Aboriginal communities and individuals to improve their lives. And, Mr. Speaker, we would like the opposition to actually get on board and support those concrete measures that we've taken to improve the lives of Aboriginal people.
The honourable member for Halifax.
Not just about what happened in the past, it's about what's still happening today. 20 years after the last residential school closed, the state of First Nations education in Canada is a disgrace. There are too many First Nations children who don't have a safe, quality school to attend in their local community, and First Nations students still receive an average of $8,000 less than students in the rest of Canada. Will the government act now to close the gap before another generation suffers from these discriminatory education policies?
Mr. Speaker, our government remains committed to a fair and lasting resolution to the legacy of Indian residential schools. As acknowledged by the Prime Minister's historic apology on behalf of all Canadians in 2008, there's no place in Canada for the attitudes that inspired Indian residential schools to ever prevail again. We continue to make significant investments in Aboriginal education. Our recent budget committed substantial funding for education on reserve and builds upon an investment of $500 million that was announced last year by the Prime Minister for First Nations education infrastructure. We will continue to work with First Nations, parents, teachers, schools and leaders to improve the quality of First Nations education on reserve.